Right, so it's my first time, so you guys are pioneering. I've spoken to various groups of students, and I think they saw the video called Black Pain, White Guilt, and Issues of Identity. So when you have YouTube access, please watch the video, Black Pain, White Guilt, and Issues of Identity. That's the video that deals largely with these issues of identity that I've addressed at UCT. I brought a few copies for people who don't have access to the internet. I know all of you have access to the internet, but you might have a situation where you want to take it home with you, show other people, and make copies from the internet, download it. And that, if you buy that video, probably 15 rands that DVD. All my stock with students are half price. All my books, that's what I do. I do my own fees must fall. But the other book, Freed by God but Imprisoned by Culture, the printers here in Johannesburg messed me up with some quality issues. So it's not only half price now, from 200 to 100 rand, but it's even much more. It's like I've been 70 rand I said to because of just a few pages that I didn't do well, because we believe in excellence. So just for you here, if you have access to it, you'll have it for that amount. Because some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is based on that book, Freed by God, but Imprisoned by Culture. I believe we all sitting here are culture prisoners, that we are imprisoned by one type of culture or another. Everybody. I'm coming from, you see the way I'm dressed, I'm coming from Mighty Man in Limpopo. They call it Mighty Man Bushveld. Over 4,000 men there, and Angus was speaking this morning. And mainly, as you know, white. And in fact, I was in the VIP section of the conference. Angus is there and the rest. About 40, I counted about 40 people mingling around the VIP section between the VIP and the stage. And with their wives, I was the only black person. So I looked at the situation, it felt a bit funny. I'm with all these white people milling around and having a good time, and I'm the only black person. I was telling Lorraine, I'm with Lorraine Erasmus, was traveling with me. She's a student here, she's based here in Pretoria. So I was telling her that I don't know if these people don't see anything funny about the situation. That here all of them in their numbers, I'm the only black person. Other black people are around, but they're working as laborers around. That I said to them, I found it very funny. The only black person worthy enough to be VIP is one person. You know, so I'm not sure if I don't think there's a consciousness on their part to see that this is an anomaly. It's not normal. But when I preach on Saturday morning, I did not mince my words in addressing racism. In fact, I don't even know they'll invite me again. I went with my both hands on the throat of racism and I strangled that thing out. And I think it's dead in the bomb. I'm not thinking it's still alive. I killed that thing. So, you must understand, these are African men. Strong men, big men. These are farmers. I'm in their farm, I'm in their place. But I just went after this thing. And basically, not confrontational. The Word of God is a loving letter that God wrote to us. The Word of God is not against anybody, but it's against anything that is against God. Yeah. So when I teach that you are against me because you're against God who made me. That's why you're against me. You're not so much against me because of the color of my skin. It's because you don't know my Father. I am His Son. And the product is defined by its maker, not by its discoverer. Yeah. So you can't define me because I'm already defined by God. So that's the platform. So I don't defend myself because I'm settled in who I am. I'm secured in who I am. I don't need to stand up in a platform called blackness because I'm going to address this I'm going to show you that's not a platform you might be standing on. That platform will give you a false sense of security. It will not secure you as much as God will secure you. As I said, a product is defined by its maker, not by its discoverer. So everybody discovers us, doesn't make us. Only the one who makes a product gets to define what is making. And nowhere in the Bible, when it makes man, Genesis 1:26, let us make man our image, it never said let's make a black man or a white man. The condition of the prefix black or the descriptor black or white is a man-made descriptor. It's a social political term made to serve a political purpose. It's not made by God. God doesn't define you as black. It defines you as a person. Other people qualify
person has been black. God just tells you. So we are standing before God as sons and daughters. That's all. And I was saying to this group of men that we have one Father. Matthew 6:9, Jesus says, pray this prayer. I said to them, Jesus says, let's pray our Father. I was saying to them, whether you like it or not, He's our Father. The word our is a collective word. He's not just your Father, He's our Father. If He's our Father, that makes us brothers. If we are not brothers, then we don't have the same Father. If we have the same Father, then we are brothers. So I said, brothers don't have to agree on anything. Your brother may support the Stormers, another brother may support the Cheaters. I will talk about because, if I was amongst you, I would say, play the Chiefs and Tigers. So, we must be relevant, contextual, So, Stormers, Lions and Cheaters, and they like that part, I said, your brother may vote Freedom Front Plus, may vote TA, may vote EFF, they look to listen. That's your brother. He's crazy like that, but he's your brother. Not your brother because you agree on anything. You are brothers because you're the same Father. So I said, we don't have to agree. We don't have to have the same denomination, the same philosophy. As long as we're the same Father, we are brothers. Then I made also an example. I said, blood runs into my body. It's not black man's blood or white man's blood. It's either type O or type B. I said, if you don't want a black man's blood and you're involved in an accident and you are bleeding and they brought you, because there's no fridge for black man's blood in South National Blood Services. There's no separate fridge. And they brought you blood and they tell us of a black person, you refuse the blood. You're going to die. Not of blood loss, out of ignorance. Ignorance will you're going to go to heaven sooner than you think because you are ignorant, because blood is blood. Then I'm saying the blood of Jesus eliminates racial divisions. So when we are in the blood of Jesus, there is no such thing as black and white. Outside of the blood, there's race. In the blood, there's no race. That's the issue here. So we come to Jesus, we don't make God after our kind. He makes us after His kind. So we don't come and live in the night. There's no God of white people. There's no God of black people. So we don't box God to fit our politics. He's greater than our politics. So whatever stage of evolution, historical we are, we don't define God based on our historical or political evolution. God is greater and is universal. So do not allow yourself to bring God into your political sense. God is greater. So it doesn't matter where you are in terms of your migration and your politics or your philosophy. God has been around longer than you, and you will die and go and you will remain God. So do not try and fit God into your situation. Go and fit in His context. Because you were made for Him. He wasn't made for you. So you must understand where is God, what He's saying. So people are trying to tell me and trying to bring God into a specific religion or politics or race. I realize they're serving a very small God. The one I'm not prepared to serve. Because the God I'm serving is the God of all nations. And so now I'm going to share to you a couple of scriptures. I'm not going to even look at them because you know them. In Genesis chapter 1, I mentioned verse 26, let's make man in our image. He gives Adam and Eve dominion over 3 spheres. The biosphere over where the creeping things are, the atmosphere where the flying things are, and all of these things. And they dominate these spheres. And the hydrosphere where the fishes are. 3 spheres is given to dominate. He's not supposed to dominate by anything in those spheres, but he's supposed to have dominion over those 3 spheres. But one of a creature from that sphere, as a serpent, speaks to Eve and says to Eve, if you eat of this tree, some theologians make this tree look like an apple, and I don't know where they get the red apple, but some of you see pictures of the red apples sparkling. But I don't know what that tree is, but it's a fruit. But you always see this red apple. I'm not sure who was there, but the draw pictures had this red apple. So I've given up on trying to explain it. I don't understand it myself. But Eve is given a temptation. The word is, it says, had God said, and God did not say. So the enemy begins to slow down concerning the word of God. And then this woman eats. After she eats, and she says to her, you shall be like God. There, she already is like God. But he sells her a bad picture. She's already made in God's image, but the serpent says, if you eat of this tree, you shall be like God. She buys into this idea that I am not good enough, therefore let me try and prove who I am. She buys into this idea. God then comes in as it is normal for him. And Adam, where are you? He says, we have hid from you because we saw that we are naked. Then God asks a question. God asks a question and he says to him, who told you you are naked? Have you eaten of the tree that I've told you not to eat of? So God is not confirming or denying the supposed nakedness. He's simply questioning who's the source of the information. Who validates you? Who are you hearing from now? Who told you you are naked? That question is applicable to us today. Who told you you are black? Who is the source? So God asks, who told you you're black? Who told you you're white? Who told you this? And all these labels we wear. So now it is a democratic right to belong in any demographic box. We South African, we belong in boxes. So the blocks, so I heard teacher, my mom, when people explained I draw boxes, and I said there's a white box, there's a black box, and then there's a colored box, and then I said then there's the other. And so I said, it's confusing now. The Chinese are black now, it's very confusing. So I'm like, then there's other, and other people belong in that other box, which is just a lot of people belong there. And so, and I tell white people that your box, I call it a culture. In my book, by the way, by my book on culture, the thing is simply about culture, African cultural practices, lobola and such things and circumcision. The last 3 chapters are about European culture. I've just written them in the back. And so the first one is a culture of security. So they buy it. Finally, somebody told about the African cultural practices, which we have a problem with. So they buy it for them, and then in the end, they have a chapter called a culture of superiority. Which is what European culture is. It's a culture of superiority. Superiority is not uniquely a South African problem. It's a worldwide problem of Europe. It emanates. Europe has a problem of thinking of itself as being superior. I tell people in South Africa, listen, I said that a person of European descent has to be conscious in addressing superiority, as a person of African descent has to be conscious in addressing idolatry. Your weakness in your culture is idolatry. Their weakness is superiority. These are weaknesses in this culture. Why are they weak? Because they are man-made. Culture is a social construct. It's a man-made construct. It's not made in heaven. God did not make culture. He made people who made culture. But people are sinners. And sinners do not make that which is not affected by sin. So each culture is tainted by the condition of its inventor. Culture is started by few but followed by many. So I also define culture as nothing else but you and I being governed by dead people. Yes, culture is you being ruled by dead people. Amen. That's culture. It doesn't matter what culture is. So I tell them that, guys, you have a problem. The problem is that you think of yourself because of how you've been raised. You are prisoners of your culture. You think of yourself as superior. We forgive you for your confusion. You are confused and we forgive you because you're confused. Because you cannot take what God has made in his image. The image of God has no varying degrees. There's no levels of image. There's no levels of God's love. God loves in perfect condition. So you cannot improve on what God has made. You also cannot reduce the value of what God has made. God makes perfection. You are trying to, the only species in the Bible that ever questioned the image of God was Satan. The first species to say, hath God said? The first species to question the image of God was Satan. Therefore I tell them that any of you who question the image of God that exists in us is under the influence of Satan, not under the influence of God. The devil has become your father. Because if you knew my father, you would love me because I look like him. I am belonging to him. I don't need validation from you. I know who I am and I know whose I am. So if you knew my daddy, you would love me because I'm his son. So therefore we have the problem of racial divisions is largely a problem of culture difference. The problem is that we are on a different culture. Nothing is different. The lungs are in the same place. When students who do medicine have a cadaver, which they do practices in and they do medical training, they can use any body. They find the lungs are in the same place, the pancreas in the same place, the kidneys in the same place. There is no kidneys different for white people. The same lungs are there, the same pancreas is in the same position. That's how we are made, and we are confusing ourselves based on this thing called the skin color, the whole pigmentation, and the differences in our cultures. The culture is behavioral, not biological. There's no culture in your genes. It's generational, not genetic. I'm awesome, and they've been telling me since I've been born, if you don't do this practice, something will happen. If you don't do this, they've always been checking me since I've been born. If you don't do this, you won't have children. If you don't do this, I'm saying, what do you mean I'm a child? People who don't even do anything have children. I'm doing the babies all the time. People who don't do nothing, they just have babies non-stop without doing nothing. This thing is biology. People just have babies. They don't plan it. They're like, I'm pregnant. I mean, it just happens. They didn't slaughter any goat, no sheep. They didn't do anything. Boom, pregnant. You're telling me if I don't do this, if I don't pay this, if I don't do that, I mean, for instance, Lobola. Perpetuate and keep the practice. Like, it's natural. Everybody who defends the practice will always couch it very nicely, put all the nice things to it. I'm a person who likes to question things. So first of all, I'm told that Lobola is not transactional. It is not a transaction. It is a way to show that the man loves the woman and is worthy enough to have her. But it's not a transaction. So I said, oh, that's interesting. Because you pay money, you get a wife. So, I don't know what a transaction is, maybe I don't know English, but if I go to a shop and I look at the shirt and I have 100 grand, I get a shirt, that looks to me like a transaction. Something has changed. So, now, listen to this. I paid the dollar. Yeah. My wife's brothers, elder brothers, are in Johannesburg here. When both this came, we are all sitting in a flat somewhere in Johannesburg, negotiating this thing. I signed a check. I don't see culture there. We're not even in a rural setting. We are in so-called city of gold, commercial. We are here commodity. I'm signing a check. There's no cows. I mean, there's something in this is pure commercial. I signed a check, I get a wife. So there's no transaction, but I see that my check has been cashed. My account shows me that somebody has cashed my check. And in exchange of that, I have a wife at home. But I still want to talk to the transaction. The original genesis of Lobola was this. It was done to compensate the father of the bride for losing the laboring services of his daughter from the homestead. It's a patriarchal system. Women will labor and men pay for labor. So the father of the bride would also use the Lobola to either obtain another wife for one of his sons or obtain a second wife for himself to replace labor. Because women did not go to school, they did not go to farming, they don't do anything, they only stayed at home to labor for domestic reasons. So it's purely a patriarchal system. Now please, if you want to take me to Abraham and Eliezer having paid a bridal dowry for Rebecca, please understand scriptural context. It was a gift, not a payment. There's a difference between a gift and a demanded payment. So if you read the Bible, please read it in context. So if you want to go there to Eliezer, he gave the gifts voluntarily for Rebecca without being asked a specific price. In our culture, you ask a specific price and they will give you the other price. That's different. So we don't give lobola, we pay lobola. So I've never given it, I paid it. I was asked a specific amount and I paid the amount as I was asked. It was never a gift I give for myself. So let's understand the context. Okay? Now, there are many things that have defined our identity. That's one of them. So women are telling us that they don't like patriarchy. They don't like that men. And by the way, the Bible is a very patriarchal book. The Bible which you follow. Because it talks about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It doesn't talk about Abraham and his sons. It's like Abraham never had daughters. Everywhere there's a line as a lineage, there's a mentioning of a descent system or lineage. It mentions sons. You hear of Abraham, you hear of Elijah, you hear of this, you don't hear of girls in between. It's like it was always men. Yeah. So it followed what is called patriarchal cultures, follow what is called a patrilineal descent system. It's a line that counts men, not women in between. It's a patrilineal descent system. Matriarchal cultures, however, follow a matrilineal descent system. There are matriarchal cultures in the world where they practice not polygamy but polyandry. Where it's the other way around. It's the lady with more than one husband. Which will never be accepted in Africa. Never. Polygamy, yes. Polyandry, no. I'm not selling my woman. That's ourselves. So we have these cultures. So we get identity from these things, and we are so convinced. And now one of the things we say that he said to me, this is who I am. You feel that? This is who I am. So like, it's amazing to me that the people who don't know who they are always the one to shout, this is who I am. You know, you point to your body and this is who you are. It's confusion. You point to your name, this is who you are. That's confusion. You know, you point to your material condition, your middle name, that's confusion. The other things you point to as who you are not who you are. For instance, they asked John in John chapter 8, they asked him the question, who are you? They asked him the question, who are you? He answered the question 3 times. I'm not Elijah, I'm not the prophet, I'm not the Christ. Nobody asked him if he was not. They asked him, who are you? This means to know who you are, you must know who you are not. You must have a process of eliminating wrong concepts of identity. John did not say, I'm John, the son of Zechariah, the son of Elizabeth, which he was in the flesh. He said, I'm the voice of the one crying in the wilderness. If you study epistemology, the best is to know your background. I hear people say this, it's time for African people to go back to where they come from. It's all about culture. Because physically, I don't know where we come from. Like, because we're here, you know, we argue about, I don't know where Zulus, I don't know. First of all, there's all tribal battles between Xhosas and Zulus. Though they are the same, they are brothers. Now we're supposed to be hating each other for reasons that Shaka and Zulu fought their stories. Maybe they fought over a girlfriend. Now we're supposed to get to it. I don't know what the problem is. So we are here in first century trying to issues with Zulu and Xhosas. And nothing to do with us. You know, we have these tribal issues, but nothing to do with us. And so John said, the voice of the one crying in the wilderness, make straight. So you will never know who you are until you know who you are from. Paul says in Acts 17, verse 28, in him we live, in him we move, and him I have my being. I discovered who I am for the first time when I met Jesus. I realized that I was hidden in him. He introduced me to me for the first time. And I liked the person I met. And I had to let go of the person I thought I was. So there's lots of things. I can talk about many cultural practices. In Xhosa land, there's circumcision. Guys go to the bush, they come back, beat their chest, some man. Whoa! Because of the surgical procedure. Because of the surgical procedure, you're a man. Then my wife, who has done 2 cesarean sections, she'll be more of a man than I am. If manhood is contingent, is on having a surgical procedure. How many surgical procedures do women have? Men. Pain. If pain is resulting to manhood, women have more pain than men. So it should be more. So to be a man should be more than experiencing pain. Because I don't know about you, I've been in theater 2 times with that woman lying there with her stomach cut open, and I realized I am not giving back, and I thank God. I thank God for the gift of not giving back. This is trauma. Whenever my wife talks about the third child, what's the third child? Every time she says to my third child, I say, theater, again, theater. No. The only reason I'm not having a third child, I am having the nightmares of theater. I'm having they were wearing things, standing there. I'm completely, I mean, my student, my manhood, my testosterone, everything was gone with some why do you create this? This is hard. I'm standing, I can't do anything. I'm here. I can't do anything. I can't do anything. I can't provide nothing. I'm just standing there. I'm like, when is doctor's finishing? Like, deep, my chin's deep. I'm like, oh God. My daughter was born. She wasn't breathing. So my daughter is born. I'm like, I'm just watching. And then they just punch the stomach and she breathes. I mean, I'm traumatized. I'm just doctor is having a cell phone call because another kid. I mean, it's just calm. It's just, cell phone, one hand touching. And for me, I'm there. For me, I'm ready to drop down. I'm like, my heart is coming out. Like, women do this thing all the time for us. And so, as a last point, because I want to open for questions. The Spirit of God has a plan for your life. So is the spirit of the enemy. One of the things that the enemy will do to you is give you anger. You'll be caught up in identity politics and anger and hatred. Some students asked me in Elizabeth, they said to me, but Pastor, what if these are people, they are oppressing us or they are provoking us and we are angry? I said, listen, when you press, you feel, I said, we are pressed by these white people. I said, listen, if you take a tube and you press it, only what is inside the tube comes out. I said, they are pressing you, yes, but they did not put what is inside the tube. If you are hateful filled, you were hate-filled before they pressed you. They only pressurize you to release what was already inside of you. Nobody can make you hate another person. Nobody has the power to make you walk in hatred. You already had hatred. They only provoke what was inside of you. Garbage in, garbage out. So one of the things I've had to learn, and I'm able to teach this group of women amongst them. And for me, I believe in operating from the inside. Standing outside and shouting. I'm with these guys. I'm like, one mighty men conference in Mhlophe is about 30,000 men. I mean, it's packed. 30,000 men. I tell them, please do not come to this conference and come and respect me as African Mhlophe. Why are you disrespecting your labor there in your farm? You have no right to come and treat me with some level of respect. And you think that you're impressing me. And then you call people boys and all that in your farm. Treat them as you treat me. Otherwise, don't come and pretend it. I'm talking to 30,000 men in their own conference. Because the issue is, it's better to operate from within. And people can listen to you if you speak with love. Sure. It's not that they want to listen. If you answer questions, if you're ready to engage. This anger, this Bible says, be angry but sin not. So the Bible is fine with anger, but not the actions that are inconsistent with the Bible. So it's important for you to understand that one of the things that the enemy will do to you, and if you allow this, like Peter was prejudicial against the Gentiles. Yeah. He preached until Acts chapter 10. We don't hear about Peter. But Peter, his ministry of Peter was cut short at the level of his prejudice. Prejudice will stop God from taking you further with you. The next thing we hear is Paul going to the nations. I believe Paul came to replace Peter. Around which they've been written about Peter's books, 75% of the New Testament should have been Peter. But Peter's prejudice to the Gentiles stopped his ministry. So the people you don't love, God will never give you a ministry to them. So your ministry, if ever, and any of you have a sense of a calling to ministry, please understand this. Ministry is governed by love, not by theology. Theology only equips you to minister, but ministry is governed purely on love. It operates on the parameters of love. Without love, you can't minister effectively. So once you have hatred, black pastors will tell me they'll never fellowship with people. I said, that's fine, that's your choice. That's where your ministry has been cut short. You'll be a good pastor among black people, but you'll never change the nation. It's fine. You'll be well known in the townships. You'll be tense, feeling tense. That's good. Tense will be full of people who come to you, the men of God. Yes, they'll come, but you'll never change the nation. Unfortunately, I have been called to change a nation. I tell people, I am not called to preach to black people. The Bible says, go and make disciples of all nations, not of your nation, but of all nations. All of them. But one of the things I always tell white guys, because they ask this question, Africa, what can we do as white churches? I said, first of all, these churches that are white are multiracial. Multiracial. But the staff is not multiracial. So all these churches are multiracial. Have no white, black people on staff. So multiracialism and multiculturalism are not the same thing. Sitting next to each other in the chairs in the church doesn't mean we are mixed. We just sit next to each other. There's a difference between multiracialism and multiculturalism. Most of the multiracial churches are monolithic cultures. They are dominated by one culture. They practice cultural fascism. One culture dominates. Black people are there to give money and to be ushers, but not to preach, because they are suspicious of their theology. That's fine. That's fine. We need to know how to be content with who we are. Not. We've got issues. Not must we believe in a white person that, unless the pastor is white, not must we have that conviction. So that we've got our own issues. Not the white person's problem, it's our own problem. You know, when a white leader speaks, we're more inclined to believe him than if a black leader speaks. Let me stop there. I know what saying. We have to allow for questions. Thereafter, we're going to pray together. The presence of God is here, so I'm keen on us praying there, but let's allow for questions. Any subject about identity. Amen.
Such a challenging sermon, and I think after this, Kev will have a portion of it that has got white people as well. One of the major grounds on which our black people reject the gospel of Christianity is the source in which we came to know the gospel, that it was brought to us by white people. We already knew God and we had a way on which we related to God on. So, and we can't ignore the fact that to a certain extent it was misused and abused as a tool of oppression. But I want you to comment on a bit on that, because that issue will also touch on how far you touched that the Bible is patriarchal, but is it patriarchal as politics defines it, to a point where the woman has no say and is totally oppressed? So to what extent can we boldly declare that the Bible is patriarchal?
So you've basically asked two questions, eh? I'm just saying, yeah. Just to be clear. Yes, sir, the next one, yeah.
Oh, thank you for this. Thank you so much for the sermon. You were so articulate and concise. I want to So I've got two questions. The first question is, how do we as a society or as Christians breach the dichotomy between making sure as the children of of God, that we breach the dichotomy between making sure that we reject that which is cultural but infringes on our Christianity, and that which we want to reject and is also cultural but doesn't pose a threat to our salvation, just like Lobola, it doesn't pose a threat to my salvation. If I can afford, then why not pay? And my second question is, in the talk of patriarchy is, to what extent does it give, I don't know, a permission to feminism? Because I feel like if we are going to say, okay, yes, we concede to the fact that, okay, the Bible is patriarchal, but then people rose up in the name of deconstructing or decolonizing patriarchy in the name of feminism. How do we make sure that this feminism does not reach to a point whereby it's at the detriment of the power of men according to the Bible? Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question based on the metaphor of yes, I heard the word of God. And I want to ask that we know that in the Bible says about Jacob, about Rachel and Leah. He labored for Rachel for 7 years, right? Which is, if you labor for something, meaning you are going to get a wage. And for that wage, then Jacob labored for Rachel to be his wife. Then in return he got Leah. Then he waited another 7 years. So he got Rachel. So I want to ask, isn't that global? So because he labored for Rachel and Leah. And also Moses. Moses kept the flock of his father-in-law, which was for the price of his wife. So I want to understand the method there.
So what I'm going to do, I think it's the fourth one. So I'm going to take 5, then take the next one, 5, and then I'll answer those, then we'll come back to it.
Okay,
in fact, I'm telling this last one, this one, for this round, and then I'll come to you guys, if you don't mind.
Okay, I'm speaking because my question is similar to his.
Okay.
But I just wanted maybe to bring more clarity if we don't get an opportunity. I understand that the first time when Jacob worked, they asked him what to be given of him. He's the one who first offered.
Yes.
So I understand that the family did not ask him, as we said, that these days is like the family.
Yes.
But I just I want you to clarify the content of the second wife, why he has to actually wait. Why didn't just give him if really it was not something to work for?
Okay, all right. So fine. If you guys don't mind waiting for me to address these ones. The first one is Christianity being brought to us by white people. And that black people had a way of worshiping God. And then white people came and they use it as a tool of oppression. And that is true. And I say this when I address that the messenger of Christianity is discredited, but not the message. We can find fault with the messenger, but we can never find fault with the message. So now we need to move beyond the messenger and find the message ourselves, and find the message is quite nice for all of us. There are a couple of things that people use that are very much based on ignorance. One, the Bible is written by white people to oppress black people. That's hogwash. Firstly, historically, for historical reasons. First, the Bible is written over a period of 1,000 years by 40 different authors who lived at different times, who never collaborated. 40 different authors over 1,000 years to collect the whole book of the Bible. What's called the Bible. The word biblio means books, it's a collection of books. So each person was writing his own book, not knowing who's writing the next book, not knowing that they're going to be collected together to make one book. It's been sold to over 3 billion copies in the world. It's a best-selling book. Google it right now. It's still the best-selling book of all times in Guinness Book of Records. The best-selling book is 12,000 different languages translated, the Bible, and it's still the best-selling book of all times. And it has inspired relief, it has brought health, reformation. Florence Nightingale, the first nurse in the world, was inspired by this faith. Education, Oxford started as a Christian university. Many things have been brought in the world because of this so-called oppressive book.
education, health, hygiene, agriculture, by the inspiration of this book. And then if white people wrote the Bible to oppress black people, it doesn't sound very clever to write in the first chapter of this book that these black people are made in God's image. It doesn't sound oppressive to me to write it. Anybody who has read the Bible properly, just the book of Proverbs alone, read that book and hear the book speak on every subject under the sun without the benefit of education. About astrology, about stars, about birds, about trees, about seasons, about planning, about finance, about goal setting, without having gone to school. If white people would have done that without the benefit of education, then we have simply admitted our inferiority. That they are naturally, inherently superior to us. If they can write such a book without going to school, then we have admitted that they are superior to us. Because the Bible cannot have been written by mind without the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. If white people did it without the education, then we have to admit they are superior to us. Because the Bible is very deep written by human beings without God. And now, black people did not get conversion by white people. The first black convert in Acts chapter 8, the Ethiopian eunuch, was preached by Jew Philip, coming from Jerusalem. He had gone to worship in Jerusalem, so he was a worshipper of Yahweh. This man read Isaiah 53 but didn't understand it, and God brought Philip into his chariot. Coming with a chariot. He was a treasurer, this man, finance minister of today's times. This man went to Jerusalem. So he was preached by a Jew. So the first African convert was not preached by a European, but by a Jew. But we did not, Tina, take responsibility to spread the gospel in Africa. That's the problem we had. Had the gospel passed if it gone from Jerusalem straight to Africa without going via Europe, yes, it would have made a bigger difference because it came here wearing European clothes. Now we have to. I tell you, when people even singing the worship we do is not necessarily Christian. White wedding is not Christian, by the way. It's European. Wearing a ring is not Christian. Yeah. It's European. Amen. We think I shouldn't wear African clothing during my wedding because it's ancestral, it's adult. No, it's not. White wedding doesn't mean you are being Christian. It just means you're following European culture. So we have these things. But the problem is moving from one problem. We fix one problem by creating another problem. So white people have regionalized God by making him a God of Europe. We now in turn want to regionalize him by making him a God of Africa. Jesus was in Africa, was in Egypt for 2 years. This Son of God knows this continent. When they spoke of Ethiopia in the Bible, they spoke of the continent. In the Bible, Ethiopia was the continent, was not a country. It is now a country, but it was a continent. And the civilization of Africa has been misquoted, misinterpreted. If you look at Timbuktu and many other Mapungube and many Egyptian hagiography and writings, you hear a civilization that was surpassed European civilization by the time they landed here. But they are very selective in choosing the rural, pastoral people on the bushes with animal loins. They like that picture. They don't like the fact that we're trading already in gold with the rest of the world before they came here. We're already trading. So we have that. Our responsibility is not to allow ourselves to be turned into what they were when they came to us. Another anger weapon. So no, we know. So God would have reached the continent with or without Europe. They are blessed that God used them. They are cursed if they don't understand that the providential purpose of God, that God will have reached us nonetheless. Yeah. It is a privilege for them to be used by God in the level which they have. If they use that as an occasion for pride, it is God who will deal with them. Our responsibility is to step aside and say, God, behold what they say about us. Like they said in the book of Acts, Peter says, behold their threatenings. So we don't have to worry about people misinterpreting the scripture. Now, the issue of patriarchy, and everybody asked about it. Let me explain like this. Everything in the Bible is correctly recorded, but not everything is the correct thing to do.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to go and explain to you. Judas committed suicide, correctly recorded. Not the correct thing to do. David committed adultery with Bathsheba, correctly recorded, but not the correct thing to do. In the Bible, there's things that are prescriptions and things that are descriptions. There's what is prescribed, there's what is described. You are only supposed to obey what is prescribed, not what is described. In light of patriarchy, let me explain this. Solomon had 700 wives and 700 girlfriends. Correctly recorded. Correct. They do not do this thing wrong. Do not. Now, there's a man in the Bible. There's a man in the Bible who said to God, after the win, they won the war. He said to God, whatever comes out first from my house, I'll sacrifice it to you. And the first thing that came first was his own daughter. And he sacrificed it. They did not respect women, these people. It is not the work of God. It's a work of culture. He allowed it for a season. Jesus, the first king in the Bible to mention women in his hierarchy, in his lineage.
Amen.
He mentions 4 women. 4 women. No king ever mentions women in his lineage. In the lineage of Christ, Rahab is mentioned, Mary is Rahab, Tamar. There's no king who mentions women. He then puts aside the dividing line. In John 4, as a king, as a rabbi, as a Jew, he speaks to a woman at the well. Jews did not speak to Samaritans. A rabbi did not speak to a woman alone without another person. Especially a woman of such nature with so many boyfriends. He broke a cultural paradigm, a cultural barrier, a religious barrier, a gender barrier to reach this woman and reach the village. Jesus had women attending to him, the woman at the alabaster box. Women, the first people to preach the resurrection of Christ were women. The first witness, the first person, the apostolic person, the first person to announce. She told the men, they did not believe it. She knocked at the door, they did not believe it. Jesus is risen. No. They did not believe it. Peter stood the first, he's not risen. They were afraid, hiding themselves in the room until he walked to the wall and said, peace be still, and wanted fish. They were afraid. So Jesus did not discriminate against women, but our culture does. So now, people use the Bible for their own purposes and context. Now, the issue of male headship is only restricted to marriage. It's a domestic arrangement. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands. Not women submit to men. Wives submit to your own husbands. Ephesians 5:22 says, submitting one to another. It follows, says, submitting one to another. Then from there, general submission to specific submission. So it talks about submission and then it talks about the household. That wives submit. So yes, in the house, someone spoke about the authority of men. I'm not denying the authority of men. First of all, in my house, I never talk about being the head. Because the head never announces himself as the head. The head functions as the head. First of all, the eyes are in the head. The head sees on behalf of the body. So the man has a vision. Yes. The word submission means coming under a mission. So we marry a man on the presumption that he has a mission where they have to submit. The last point on that, if you are the man who we are supposed to be, you have no even worry, you don't need to worry about it. First of all, the Bible did not even tell women to love their husbands. It said they must submit. The one with an obligation to love, as Christ loved the church, meaning sacrificial love, he doesn't eat first. That's not sacrifice. Sacrificial love is that unless everybody has been satisfied, then I eat. That's sacrifice. So the men who practice patriarchy, where they eat first, they're not practicing the Bible, they're practicing culture. So, on Moses, on Jacob, on whoever. Exactly as I said, the Bible is written into a context, and that context is patriarchal. The Jewish culture is similar. It doesn't mean because it's Jewish, it means it's of God. There's a difference. Not everything Jews do. Jesus, when he talks about marriage, for instance, in Matthew 19, he says this. They said to him, Lord, Moses allows us to divorce our wives. He says that. Yeah. They said pardon. He says to them, but in the beginning it was not so. So Jesus does not address marriage from the progression, but from the original. He says, he doesn't say, because the Bible is like this. Genesis 1 and 2 is a place of innocence. Genesis 3 downwards is a place of sin. So you cannot trace God's original mind from the sin of David, or sin of Abraham, but from Genesis 1 and 2, before sin. What was the original? The original was this. He made her and brought her to him to be a helpmeet, suitable. Animals are not suitable because it was so suitable, an equal partner suitable to him. He brought her. She was created with him together. She was made at a different time. Creation and make are two different things. Bara and Asa in the Hebrew. So she was made, in Genesis 1 and 2, male and female created he them and blessed them. But in Genesis 2, the body is made later. So therefore, Eve is not an afterthought. It's the body that came after from Adam. The creation of Eve is in the beginning, together with Adam. So we must not be confused here. God did not just look at man's loneliness and then created Eve. He took out Eve, who was already existing in Adam. She was there, but he took it out so that she becomes independent. That's why Jesus, also the church is taken out from him, from his side. And so we need to be very clear on that. So now, everywhere else the Bible talks about Moses having worked for his wife. I want to ask myself a question. Did Adam work for Eve?
He didn't.
The answer is no. So if I trace marriage from the beginning, not from what it became after sin, but what it was designed in the beginning, I don't find Adam paying a price for Eve. And Jesus only addresses marriages from the beginning. Doesn't say, it says Moses said it because of the hardness of your heart, but in the beginning wasn't so. So that's how I answer that. And then dichotomy between culture and practice in the Bible. I don't believe that we need to obliterate everything about culture. Because there are things about culture that are actually helping us understand the Bible better. For instance, we understand the issue of respecting the elderly better because of our cultural background. And the Bible says, rise up in the presence of an agent, of an elder. And so honor your mother and father. So, being hospitable, you won't do. That is close to the biblical pattern of being hospitable. Entertain strangers. So there are many things that are good about culture. As long as we don't use culture for morality. Morality must be derived from the Bible, not from culture, because culture only addresses sins that are committed against human beings, not sins against God. Culture sanctions you for what you do against man, never sanctions what you do against God. That's what the problem with culture. Culture sanctions visible sins. The Bible still says, if you look at a woman, so Jesus doesn't deal with sins of the hands, but sins of the heart. So God is concerned about the condition of the heart, not revealed sins, but hidden sins. So culture sanctions you when you act out your sin. God deals with you before you even act your sin out. So the Bible is always superior to culture because it deals with motives and intentions. Culture deals with you after you've committed the action. So culture is inferior, therefore, because we can hide in culture and pretend, not with God. So culture must be submitted to the Bible. That's what we do.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to ask two questions. The first one is in relation to tribalism. You spoke on racism, of how you address the leaders.
Yes.
Now then, what advice would you give to address tribalism within the church? And then the second one would be, also speak about the identity of a Christian within campus. You know, there's a specific image that everyone is putting, that this is a specific person. You should be this tall. As a woman, you should look like this, put on makeup like this, you should be this size. As a man, you should have this body. So then how should you
that specific point where you find your identity and don't lose yourself among them? Thank you.
Just before, yes, I'll give you. Just briefly that question. People will give you permission to be everything else except yourself. You have the right to be everything, but you have no right to be you. So you will never be allowed by anybody to be you, because you threatens everybody who likes conformity. So people have no problem. Just be like us. When you become you, they say, oh, this is like life. Who do you think you are? Who does this think? Yeah, Jim. Hey. She's talking. Hey. She's talking. I was like, why should I not talk? It's just people. They'll just do that. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I also have two questions.
Yes.
I find it to be too much of a coincidence that across the whole world, the most marginalized, the most belittled people are black people.
Yes.
And yet we say we praise God within our circumstances. And white people also say they praise God within their superiority and so on. So in the beginning when you started, you said we need to fit ourselves into God's idea of us. I want to know, how do we then reconcile us fitting ourselves in God's idea of people and the reality that we face? Because this reality makes it difficult for some of us to not see color and to pursue a non-racial society. And then the second question is, in the book of Ephesians, there's a part where it talks about masters and slaves. I understand there that the lesson is to have mutual respect between the two. But I want to know, in the context of the Bible, who is a slave, who is a master? Because that's what the white people used when they came here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I have two questions. The first one is, how did races come to be? And the second one is there a culture of the kingdom? And if so, what is it? Thank
you. Okay, now I spoke about that Adam was saying to God, we saw that we're naked and we hid from you. And so when people lose God consciousness and they gain self-consciousness, they begin to define themselves in ways that God doesn't define them. And so that's why God asked Adam, who told you are naked? And so the further we are away from God, the more we define ourselves based on our own terms. That's why there's white, there's black, there's colored, there's Indian, and all these terms. Now, obviously, in the box called black, there is ethnocentrism, big issues. And most of us, there's always a conflict between patriotism and ethnocentrism. Samora Machel, a former president of Mozambique, made a statement one day when he was still alive. He said, for a nation to live, the tribe must die. For a nation to live, the tribe must die. What it meant is that if you want to promote patriotism and nationhood, you must bring down tribalism. Because tribalism by its nature is opposed to national identity. It's always based on Zulu. And a Zulu person, like we have today, you have a president who appoints Zulu people in cabinet. Yes, if you're Zulu, sorry that I tell you that, but that's the truth. About more than 75% of ministers today are Zulu. And the accusation was the same happening when the president was in Thompson. And so we don't therefore appoint people based on competence, we appoint them based on tribal lineage. So we lose the best skill in the country because of our tribal connections. So the country suffers at the end, because the best people are not appointed at the job, but only the tribal friend, who may not be the best candidate. So there's nepotism, there's favoritism, there's all kinds of things. And so, and by the way, it's interesting, one white lady wants to invite me to a company in East London to talk to employees. Because it says to me, there are about 30 employees in the warehouse. They want to appoint one guy amongst them to be supervisor, but all the other guys are refusing that one of them must be leading. So there's a conflict between them, all young men, they can't allow one of them to come with them or to be supervisor. She wants me to come address the situation. I looked at her and I thought, if she would take a white boy from the farm, someone who's done matric, and appoints him, they'll be happy with that. But they can't be happy with one of them given a senior position. So there's inferiority therefore that black people have over each other, without white person being involved. We've got our own issues. And respecting a black and celebrating black excellence, what people call it black excellence. I don't like the term, but you get my point. When we have a person who's achieving as a black person, we don't give him as much respect and honor as we would if a person was white. That's our own issues. I know it because I travel around places where a guy who's black doesn't know I'm one of the speakers with Angus. He thinks just one of the people, so he just passes me, he respects, and then he sees me on the platform, he's like, oh, yes, that guy, yes, I'm VIP, yes, I know you're not used to. Even white people, they can't come and talk to me because of security protocol. They must ask for permission. I'm VIP, they're not. I'm like, the rules have changed. They must ask. I'm saying, that guy, I don't want to, that guy can come here. It's up to me now. I'm like, this is amazing. Because now it's based on my gift. Your gift will open doors for you and place you before great people. Now, the issue of identity on campus or anywhere else, I mean, please, you are who you are, or if you don't know who you are when you came here, some people will tell you who you should be. So you should have known who you are before you came on campus. Otherwise, there's people ready to tell you who you should be because you came here. But if you're somebody, do you know who I am? So, whoa, hey, there's somebody here. Hello, there's somebody that doesn't know who he is. There's somebody here. If you come here, you don't know who you are. There's others who will tell you who you should be. The social conditions of black people are bad. They are bad. I know that because I live. And I live amongst, I've got a church in the township, I stay in the suburb, and I hang around with people. So I'm part of white privilege. I stay in farms, I stay in game farms. People shoot animals, I don't know what they're doing. They know these animals, their names, how much they cost. I mean, it's really white world. I mean, I'm like, I have just no idea what's going on. But it's all of that. I was studying in Cape Town, 97, I dropped out. I'm a dropout. During my year, I'm a dropout. I didn't have a privilege of fees must fall, so fees did not fall, I fell. So I dropped out of university, and therefore, if people ask for my certificate, I can give them a matric certificate. That's what I have. Yes. I write books, I write for the newspapers. Which they call me to write for them. There are people with journalism degrees who are not accepted to write, but they call me to write for them. Last year, if you
Mm-hmm.